Hello and welcome back to Wyvern Minis. I'm continuing my series of building and painting the Combat Patrol of the Tyranids from the Leviathan box set, moving on to things that are not Termagants, which is exciting. Firstly, though, I need to say a big thank you to Andy from Mitchell Digital Media for that great little intro he's done with the logo. It's fantastic. Andy's actually, he was the singer in one of the bands that I've been using as the background music for these videos, so that's nice. So yeah, thanks Andy, it's much appreciated. So here you can see I'm starting off on the bases, the little details on the bases and what I began to paint because I wanted to start with the light colours and then move on to the slightly darker colours. So skulls to start with, obviously it's not 40k if it hasn't got skulls on, and then here on the Tyranid Prime's base I put a Terminator helmet and I think it was a bolt gun or maybe a grav gun, something Space Marine anyway. Yeah, getting those painted first before then moving on to doing the desert colours on the sand. I found that for these ones this seems to work quite well because the colours I'm then using for the claws and all that can go quite well over the sand, the Agros dunes. If that kind of spills over onto the hoofs or the claws a little bit, it gets covered over quite well. Normally I do things the other way around. When I'm doing dark grey bases, I'll paint the model and then I'll do the base after that because it kind of covers up any mistakes or errors. But for me, for these particular Tyranid models, this seemed to work the better way around, starting from the bottom, working up. Certainly with contrast paints, painting the lighter colours first, so that if you make any mistakes, the darker colours cover them over a bit easier. It saves you from having to go back and apply some wraithbone or something, and particularly here where I've done this sort of slapchoppy type spray painting, it's quite difficult to then get the same base colour by reapplying it. So trying to avoid getting too much painting over other bits is quite handy, but if you do, when you use a darker contrast paint colour, it works okay. So I'm just finishing off the bases on these other units here, so the Tyranid Prime, Von Ryan's Leapers and Barbgaunts, along with the Psychophage. That rounds out the Combat Patrol from the Leviathan box set. So that's pretty handy. Just really slapping it on straight from the pot here. I do often use a palette, especially if you want to try and get a real nice point on your brush, or you want to thin the paint down. But really, with the contrast painting in this way, it's as far as I'm concerned, straight out of the pot is absolutely fine. So here, this Barbgaunt, I'm just testing out the colour schemes. As I mentioned in the previous video of the Termagants, I decided to do something slightly different with the gun. Because the guns are separate organisms, I thought it'd be quite nice, especially on this one, to do something that's a little bit complementary but slightly different to the main body of the organism. So I went for a bit of purple on the carapace, which I think looked really cool, and then ultimately green on the inside. I think that's the same sort of colour scheme that I'm going to use on other big bioweapons on other larger models later on, because it works really well with the black and the red. Here I was just really trying to decide what colour to do the brain. So the Games Workshop paint scheme, they seem to have done largely kind of blue glowing brains. I decided for glowing I used Tesseract Glow, which is a technical paint. I'm not sure if it's still available. I had to give it a real good shake because it kind of sits a bit funny in the pot and I've not used it for quite a while. So I thought I'll give that a go. It would be really glowy, it should hopefully stand out against the red of the carapace. So you've got a small amount of brain that you can see on the Barbgaunts poking out. So I gave that a bit, and alright, here I broke my rule that I mentioned earlier about doing lighter colours first and then darker colours on the top, but I made sure I left, I was very careful with the red to make sure I left the space for the green to go on. And this was just the test model. For the other models I didn't do it in this order. This was just as I was trying to work out what would look good. how much of the carapace I was going to paint red, if I was going to do anything different, that kind of thing. So it made things slightly more difficult trying to get the Tesseract glow in there, because that definitely wouldn't go over the top of the red. But I thought it looked pretty cool on the brain. I then tried to paint it as well onto the I don't know what these are, bundles of fibres, some sort of nervous fibre or something going down towards the head. And this is what that ended up looking like. I decided that was a bit too much green. I wasn't really convinced, so I did go over that with the Stormfiend, and I just did the Stormfiend straight over the Tesseract green, Tesseract glow, and that just sorted it out actually. I thought it looked much better. So then moving on to the Leapers here. Again, this is I've done a test model for the Barbgaunts, and I was doing a test model for the Leapers, trying to work out which bits were going to be what colour. I'm trying as much as possible to limit the palette selection to make things quicker. Not do a different colour for every single type of claw or whatever. So this is using the Stormfiend, which is the same as I've used for all the hooves and claws so far. And I was finding areas where it would be useful to put onto the rest of the model. So the kind of praying mantis claws held above its head. I figured the inside of those actually worked quite well. I mean, I've seen lots of other colour schemes which have done something different, which look very, very cool. Making a bit more fleshy underneath and doing a bit more difference with the carapace and the flesh underneath the carapace and all that kind of stuff. But I decided to try and keep things as simple as possible and throw the model around the place. It was clever. Yeah, trying to just do as much of it as possible in that kind of Stormfiend colour. Just saved swapping out paints, cleaning brushes, saves a lot of time. I think it looked quite good. I even did the kind of mandible things, you know, these strange reaching tentacles. I did those in Stormfiend as well. Ultimately, I did the little kind of sharp teeth right at the end in silver, the same as the teeth on the other models. But I think that worked out quite well, and when you've got all the models together, they do look pretty decent, I think. You can see there where I've redone the fibrous cables coming from the Barbgaunts heads in Stormfiend, and I think that looks a lot better. Ties the model together better. Having this limited colour selection really makes it kind of all tie everything, make it all look quite consistent. And I moved on to the big boys, so the Psychophage on the left and the Screamer Killer on the right. Screamer Killer is not part of the Combat Patrol, but I was just excited to paint it because it's amazing. I mean, look at it. It's a beast. I really went to town on the base there. I mean, I think with base work, it's really worth putting in a bit of effort. You don't need to put in a huge amount of effort painting it, I think. Using contrast paints and washes and doing it quickly works really well. But putting a few details like this on the base, I just raided my bits box for any old bits of Space Marine or whatever, broke a bit of a talon on the Lightning Claw, and I think it looks really cool. It shows that there's a battlefield, there's something going on. The little sacky thing in the middle, the kind of purpley bit, that's from what's it called? That's from the Gene Stealer set, and I think that's really great. Here, I'm just showing here the difference between putting a wash on and not. The Termagant on the left has a wash, and the Termagant on the right doesn't. I forgot to mention this in the previous video, so I did put a black wash on all the models, and I think it ties them together, dulls it down, and looks really cool. I also forgot to talk about the tufts, which are brilliant. I love these alien tufts. They're from Tabletop World or something. I'll have to check. I'll put it in the description who they're from. But the blue and the pink, it's just a really quick, easy way to get a splash of colour on the base. Not putting in a lot of effort, but it has a really cool effect. So I'm just going to have a quick whiz around on the turntable looking at these guys, and they're all done, which I'm pleased about. And I think they look pretty good. I mean, I'm happy with it. I think that's the main thing is, are you happy with your models? And yeah, I am. Thanks for watching, appreciate it. Thanks again to Andy for the intro outro. It's really cool. I think it bookends the video nicely. And thanks as well to Matt and Dave at Get Studio. They sorted out the Wyvern wing logo for me, which Wyverns related to orcs. There's been a distinct lack of orcs on this channel so far, but that will be rectified very soon. Just